Amen. Cool. All right. So my first question for you guys: what do you think of when you hear the word leader? Mr. Giggles. Okay.
President.
I just think of the word.
Okay, what are some qualities you associate with the word leader? What would you expect a leader to act like?
My dad.
Okay,
Give me
what
qualities,
specifically?
not people. Behaviors or traits.
Put others before themselves.
Okay, I like what Rachel said. Put others before them.
Being confident in what they're teaching about.
Okay, confidence. I like that. I think of compassion. You don't have anything else?
Merciful.
Merciful. I like that one too.
Hardworking.
Yeah. These are good thoughts. Anything else? Cool. So, the way I kind of think of, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about Christlike servant leadership. So the way I kind of think about leadership is you have two kinds of leaders. You have the people who are in leadership roles. You know, those are like, you think of a pastor, you think of a teacher, you know, all of the adults are youth leaders. But most of you probably haven't been in like a leadership role before, which maybe you have, and that's great. But you don't have to be in a leadership role to be a leader, and that's your first link on the handout. The other way you can lead is leading by example. It's not really their job to lead, it's not their responsibility, but people are following you and looking at you and watching what you do. And I think that people are really, really great at following examples. You know, that's a big part of how humans learn. And I think God made us that way for a reason. You know, it can be dangerous when we choose to let people influence us who, you know, don't love God and don't follow God. But we can learn a lot through following the people around us who are seeking after God and doing what they do. It can help us grow closer to God as a result. So your example is really powerful to the people around you. And in that sense, you're very much a leader. Everyone is a leader, whether you're aware of it or not. So, like for example, who here has a younger sibling? Who here can look around this room and find someone younger than them? Did anyone not raise their hand? Yeah, I think someone Jacob. Yeah, for people who have a younger sibling, like you have no idea how much they look up to you and they're following what you do. You impact the course of their life a lot just by being their older sibling. But you know, we talked about people who are younger than you being the people you're leading, but you don't really even have to be older than someone to lead them. So turn in your Bibles to 1 Timothy 4:12. Most, if not all of you, know this one very well. Can I volunteer to read it, please? If not, I'll call Leah. 1 Timothy 4:12.
Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech and conduct and love and faith and purity.
Right. Let no one despise you for your youth. So we don't often think about this verse as it has to do with leadership. But what does the verse have to do with leadership based on?
Don't let anyone despise you for like how young you are.
Yeah?
And it says, like, set an example, so it's showing you how to be a leader.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So on your handout, I've got a question for you. Who are some of the people you lead? So this can be family, this can be inside the church, outside the church. Just take like 10 seconds and write down some people And this is so that you have those people in your mind to think about as we keep talking about this. And there's the awkward silence. And now
What was on this
we
blank?
are the second one.
Yeah.
Everyone is a leader in some way.
I should look back in.
And now we are moving on. Cool. So, just like we can be examples to other people, we have the absolute perfect leader there ever was to follow. So Jesus is the perfect leader. We're all followers of Christ. That's what we call ourselves. We are following his example. And his words and actions can show us how we should lead and be an example to those around us. And Jesus actually talks about leadership a lot. So when Jesus talks about something a lot, it's usually something pretty important or something we should listen to. And the way he talks about it, leadership isn't about being in charge. So what do you think the absolute most important part of being a leader is? If you had to summarize it down to one word, what would you say?
No idea. That's not one.
But no one.
Does a leader have to be perfect, though? Yes, ma'am?
Responsible?
Responsible. That's a good one. Anybody else? I like those thoughts. All right. So, Jesus said that leadership, the key of leadership is to serve others. Let's turn to John 13. Leadership is service. Leadership means service. That's your point. John 13, verses 12 through 15, please. Can I have a volunteer to read that?
Wait.
What? John
John chapter 13.
13, 12 through 15. It's up there too. Okay.
I can do it.
Cool. Go for it.
Wait. When he washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord. You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you have ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you also should do, just as I have done to you."
Cool. Thank you. So, what did Jesus do to his disciples?
Serve them.
Yeah, he washed their feet. He served them. And not only that, he told us, just as I've done you do to other people. He told us to do the same thing. He gave us an example to follow, and then he also, told us to follow it very directly. So some things I noticed about what Jesus did in washing their feet. What he did was, it was service, but it was very practical service. Back then they didn't have nice shoes like we have, and they didn't have paved roads either, so their feet were probably dirty and hot and sweaty and stinky. They probably needed their feet washed, and he was willing to do that for them. But also, it was self-sacrificing, That is not the most fun job in the world, to wash someone else's feet. And to get on his hands and knees and bend over and smell their stinky feet. just not fun. And he was willing to sacrifice his comfort to do that. But also, maybe most importantly, what he did was done in love. Everything that Jesus did for us, he did in love. So the service that he showed was loving. So in that last blank on the front of your handout, service is practical, self-sacrificing, and loving. And they're up there as well. So, if Jesus himself, who came to earth from heaven, was willing to get on his knees and wash people's smelly feet because he loved them so much, how much more should we be willing to serve the people that we're around every day? Can I have someone read Mark 9:33 through 35? Mark 9:33 through 35. I'll do it. Go ahead.
And they came to him, and they came to Capernaum. And when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you discussing on the way?" But they kept silent. For on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12. And he said to them, "If anyone would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all."
Cool. Thank you. So, the disciples all wanted to be great. And I think that it's pretty common for leaders, especially now, to want to be powerful and to want to be recognized. So they were all looking for that greatness. They wanted the fame, they wanted the glory. But Jesus essentially told them, hey, you're missing the point. And he said, the great leaders aren't those that are well known, aren't those that are famous or powerful. It's those who serve all. And he said, must be a servant of all. It's not just a couple people. It's not our best friend. It's not just our siblings. It's, even the people we don't like. And once we do that, once we start loving others and serving others the way that Jesus did, then he keeps working in us to become more like him, and then greatness follows. So that's your first link on the second page of your handout. Greatness follows servanthood. You can't possibly hope to be a great leader until you get service down. Are there any questions so far? Okay, how are we doing? Good? Cool. Okay, now let's turn to Mark 10, 42 and 45. Can I please have someone read that? Okay, go ahead.
And Jesus called them to him and said to them, "You know that those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as ransom for many."
Awesome. So, Jesus set the example of how to lead. And we saw that a second ago with Jesus washing the disciples' feet. But this verse gives us another example. And this is the biggest way that Jesus served us. He came to earth by dying so that we could have life. And, we talked about how service is practical, self-sacrificing, and loving. And we can see that again here. it was very practical because we really, really needed to be saved, right? Self-sacrificing, obviously, because he was the ultimate sacrifice. And most importantly, he did it because he loves us. So, those are two of the ways that Jesus came to serve us, and was an example of servant leadership to us. But what are some other ways that Jesus served people during his life?
By healing them from illness.
Okay, yeah. I mean, do you have like a specific one in mind, or just all of those? Like, is there a specific story of Jesus healing someone that you think of?
When he healed the man that can't walk.
Yeah.
Paralyzed man.
I thought of like the woman who bled for 12 years or whatever, that he not only performed a miracle, but he led an example of how to treat people who were not being treated well because of some kind of thing. People around them didn't treat them right or treat them well. And Jesus showed us how we really should be treating them, even if they're, have a various ailment or they're different than us, because he even gives us that example when he talks to the Samaritan woman. He shows us how to relate to other people.
And also when Jesus fed like the 5,000 or the 5,000 people, when like all them were listening to Jesus preaching, he never be served them. He would serve them lunch or dinner or whatever time of meal it was. It was like only like 5 fish and like 3 breads, or I actually swapped them. Like, it was only that, but there's still some left over.
Yeah.
All of that.
That's the big one that I think of.
I think that's the one with the people who were going to stone the lady who sinned, but then God, or Jesus said, who is without sin may throw the first stone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think of.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
The leopard dude.
Leopard.
Yeah. Yeah. No, he didn't just heal people. He also, with like Hannah as the same example, he showed us how to treat people. He set an example for us. Yes.
Does it count like if he was like leading the dude on the water? I can't remember his name. Peter. When he was leading Peter on the water, that counts like leading someone to faith.
I think so. Yeah.
He was calling Peter to have faith.
Anything else? So, in that second blank on the back page of your handout, Jesus sets the example of servant leadership. And then if you want to write any of those examples that we talked about down, feel free to do that.
Wait, what was it?
Jesus sets the example of servant leadership. Also on the back. So, I think all those examples do a really good job of showing, like, Jesus was all about service. Like, his miracles, he did those to serve the people around him. Wow, it's really hard to talk with a cough drop in your mouth. So, just as we follow Christ's example, we have his example to follow as kind of a template for how to serve others and how to exhibit, good servant leadership. When we serve others, we set an example. Jesus is by far the best example we have of servant leadership. But he's not the only one we have. We have other people too. And I have someone read Hebrews 13, verse 7. I'll read it. Thank you.
Hebrews 13, verse 7. Remember your leaders, those who spoke to you the word of God. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith.
Awesome, thank you. So, we not only have Jesus to follow as an example, but God also gives us, spiritual leaders, people in those, as we talked about earlier, those leadership roles, to teach us how to lead. I think we have pastors, we have youth directors, we have ministry directors. Those are the kind of people we're talking about here. And the people who, as it says, they brought the word of God to you. And we can, this verse says, to see what they do and copy it. And one of those things they can teach us is how to be a good leader. So, who are some of those people in your life? Who are those spiritual leaders? Cool. You can say names, you don't just have to call.
My parents.
Your parents? Yeah, that's good.
And Devin and you, and then Jace.
Okay. Cool. Who else?
Miss Megan.
Okay. Yeah.
Miss Dana.
Mm-hmm.
It's Dana.
Yeah, I was gonna say your mother, but I couldn't remember how to pronounce her name. I was
Sister
calling her
Diana.
Diana, but that's not it.
Pastor Grady.
Mr. Grady? Yeah.
Miss Lorraine, Pastor Stephen.
Pastor Stephen.
Yeah. Stephen.
Yeah.
Miss Lorraine.
Definitely. Okay. Awesome. So, as you can see from all those names, you have a lot of spiritual leaders around you. And so, what is something you like about the way that those people lead?
They're nice.
Okay, very nice.
Patient.
Patient. Yeah.
We put our own wants around their wants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we talked about earlier, self-sacrificing, right?
They taught us about the word.
Mm-hmm.
They're usually organized. Or things like
They're willing to help you.
Mm-hmm.
They're flexible.
Flexible. That's it.
Yeah, because you're able to get this like a litter. I'm pretty sure you meant time flexible, but I don't know about that one.
Like plan for
So,
Good leaders also provide correction.
they're willing to
Constructive
work.
criticism.
yeah.
Very good constructive criticism. Criticism.
Nice. I like all those answers. They're good. So, now that we've talked about who those people are and what you see them doing, that is good and helpful to you guys, how can you what are some things you can do to imitate them?
the way you act.
Okay.
I also like helping the younger ones, the ones that are younger than you, like they did for you.
Yeah.
serve
Do
the
the
church.
same for another.
Definition of discipleship.
Anything else? Then we can sit in awkward silence for a little bit longer.
What are some specific, like very specific things that you see those leaders in your life doing that you think, oh, I should imitate that because that is imitating Christ? What are some habits or some behaviors?
Reading the Bible, praying,
There we go.
Listen more.
journaling like you do. Journaling like you do. That's pretty specific.
Yeah. Very concrete applications.
I've got where, I think it's like in, James, but it's like, it says like, be slow to anger, slow to speak, and quick to listen, or like, man's anger, something, God, I forgot what the word after.
Be like a good role model.
Yeah. In what ways? Like how specifically? Are they a good role model?
Like doing the correct things. Sorry, I don't know if it was more. Like being a good example, oh, I'll just be quiet, but that's yeah, being a good example, doing the correct thing.
Cool.
Right things at a time.
Yeah. I think that's an important point because we talked about how they were the people in like the leadership roles whose job is to oversee a group of people. And then there's the people who aren't necessarily in those leadership roles, but they influence the actions of people around them. I think that the people in those leadership roles also have a responsibility to, be an example to people around them as well. So, thank you for bringing that up. So I have some Lego memes for you guys. This lives my brain rent free, but it actually does really well.
Honest.
Yeah, so it's 1 Corinthians 11:1. Imitate me as I also imitate Christ. Which is kind of what we're talking about. But I really like this. It gets the point across very well. So I have some questions for you guys. How is Jesus' idea of leadership countercultural? How is it different from what we see leaders doing today? Leah.
Because, leaders, like Taylor Swift, people, look up to her, and she doesn't expect to help others who look up to her.
Okay. Yeah.
Most of the time, leaders are just trying to get more power for themselves and just be above everybody else. Like Jesus, and taking down.
I like that. Yeah.
Like with all other, religions, the God was always, the top guy, but in, the Christ religion, Jesus was the only one that, our God is the only one that actually sent his son, to come down and be around, the low people, consider the low people, and, Christ actually helped them instead of being okay, I'm better than you, you have to worship, being I'm not gonna help you, but you just have to worship me anyway.
Yeah.
I think there's this idea everywhere in our culture that we have to strive for the top. We've climbed the ladder is a phrase a lot of people say. They want to get to be that CEO in that company. They want to get to be the manager in this business. They want to get into this high, they want to be at the top of their class. They want to be at the top tier so they shine bright and they look all amazing, whether it's in education or work or anywhere else that they are. And that's the exact opposite of what Jesus says. He says, do the work. Be with the people. And don't try to overshadow other people or don't try to walk all over them to get you to the top. A lot of times when people are describing this climbing the ladder idea, the ladder is built of other people that they're tearing down or stepping over or walking over or lying to or doing whatever that they think they need to do to get to this end goal they think they want. And that's not what Jesus tells us to do.
Jesus went down the ladder.
He did.
No.
Pretty much.
I don't know if this one actually quite fits it. The newer version of feminists and everything, how they're like above men, right? Like putting themselves in leadership roles that necessarily women shouldn't be in. So like, that whole idea.
Okay. So like thinking you're above someone else.
Yeah.
Like, on the the male and female, like no one is like, you're not even on the ladder. The ladder's not like this, the ladder's like this. Like, the ladder is like this, and you guys are like this. And the dude's over here, you're over here. And like, the girls are trying to come this way, like, no. This is my way of explaining it. Like, the ladder doesn't go upwards, it goes sideways. And the dude's over here, the girl's over here. There's like distinct stuff, and sometimes like it can go in the middle, but the females are trying to go to this side. But that's not how that works. You can come in this little area where you, like, both dudes and women are allowed to be in the middle, but you still have your distinct sides. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, a dude can't come over here and just give birth. Like, that's not how that works. You can't do that.
Yeah.
That's my way, that's how I think of it.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not even like being equal at this point anymore. It's like one gender is trying to overshadow the other one.
I think this kind of. Do I see a hand? Okay. I think this kind of goes along with how we were talking about greatness. The disciples were all arguing over who's going to be the greatest. And that's what we, as people, and especially people who are in those, powerful leadership positions, like, try to do. They want to be great. And, Jesus said that's not what this is about. That's not the point. You're missing the point. It's about, serving the people who need it. So, yeah, those are some good discussion. Anything else before we move on? Cool. So, I guess we kind of talked about this already, but what is the focus of today's leadership? What are leaders after?
Power.
Power and money. Yeah.
Power.
Anything else?
Fame.
Fame? Yeah, you gave the Taylor Swift example, right? Yeah, that's one too, fame.
Respect. Power. Banana.
All celebrities want bananas. Control.
Control. Ooh, there we go.
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, good job.
That's a good one. Yeah. And then kind of comparing that to what we've been talking about, what is the focus of Jesus' idea of leadership?
Serving others.
Yeah.
Putting people before themselves.
Putting people first.
yeah, I think that's basically it.
So simple, but so hard. Wash your hands.
So, all these stuff we've been talking about has been about Jesus and his servant leadership, right? But this was a thing even back in the Old Testament. And I just have a few examples, but there's a lot. And we're not going to go through and read each of these, but I think it's just cool to look at a couple of examples of people who were good servant leaders in the Old Testament and see like how they're similar to the way that Jesus led. And first one I have is Nehemiah. Can someone give me a quick summary of what he did? I will take that as no. That's okay. That's okay. So Nehemiah was the cupbearer to a king. He had an important job. He lived in the palace. He was told by God to go rebuild the wall around Jerusalem. So that's kind of a big change. He went from like a guy living in the king's palace,
Having everything.
he probably had nice food, nice place to live, and then he essentially went from that to overseeing a construction site, which is kind of a big change. But the way that he led the people in rebuilding the wall was really cool, because he wasn't like just kind of a boss standing over them saying, you do this, you do this, you do this. He did, he was their leader. He did like assign tasks and oversee what was doing very well. But he also was working right alongside them. In the book of Nehemiah, he doesn't say, I did this, and then my servants did this, and these people did this. He uses the word we. He said, and then we went and did this, and then we went and did this. And we see him going and taking care of problems and, just working right alongside the people that he was leading. So I think that's a really good example of servant leadership. And we also kind of see Jesus doing that. I'm just thinking of this now. Like, he was the leader of the disciples. But, he went everywhere with them and he did everything that they did right alongside them. Which is cool. Alright. The next guy we have is David. Someone tell me a little bit about David. Rachel.
So he was was he the youngest out of all of his brothers, or? And also the weakest and not as good looking as his other brothers, and he was a shepherd, and his brothers were sent to fight the Philistines, and David came. And David killed Goliath with like 3 or 5 pebbles. He grabbed 3 or 5 pebbles and he grabbed a slingshot and going and it hit Goliath, and Goliath died, and the Philistines ran away because they were scared or whatever.
Nice. Yeah, thank you, Rachel. So, we know later David became the king, right? But before he was a king, before he was a big boss man, he was just a guy. He was just a shepherd. And like Rachel said, he was delivering food to his brothers. And they were fighting Goliath, and no one wanted to stand up against Goliath. But David did. He wasn't even a soldier, which I think is really cool. Like, I can't, you essentially, he's delivering food, he's like a DoorDash driver. Imagine if a DoorDash driver just came up and said, hey, I'll fight this big enemy for you guys. Kind of weird.
I'd give him a nice $2 tip. That would be a $2 tip if you want me to kill a fly.
So, yeah, we see him taking responsibility that wasn't even his job. But he did it, and he served his country in that way. And he was an example to all those soldiers who were too chicken to fight Goliath. Next we see Joshua. And reading through Exodus, we saw a little bit of Joshua. What do we know about him so far? What do we know about Joshua?
Name starts with J.
He was Moses' assistant.
Right?
And one day was to lead him and be the head guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
He was the Israelites in the promised land. Was Moses for them?
Yeah. So I think it's cool to look at just from Exodus what we see with Joshua. He's just Moses' assistant. He just kind of like he runs the errands. I don't know what he does. But what he's doing is he's watching the way that Moses leads. So we see him following the example that Moses sets. And then he uses those same things that he learned when he becomes the leader of the people of Israel. Which is cool. So now let's talk a little bit about Moses. So we just went through Exodus. We saw a lot about Moses. So this one I'm going to leave up to you guys. How was Moses a servant leader?
He did a lot of stuff.
He did a lot of stuff. Yeah.
He led them out of Egypt.
Okay, how is that an example of servant leadership?
He did what he was told.
He did what he was told by God, right? Yeah, that's good. Is that him?
Oh no, I was
Okay, gotcha.
He risked his life to save all of the Jews.
Ooh, yeah. He risked his life, so he put the people who he was leader over, he put them first and served them in that way. Yeah.
He told the people to like kill a lamb and wipe it on their doorpost so that the firstborn wouldn't be killed. But he didn't like force anyone to do it. It's more of like if you believe in God, then like and you don't want your firstborn to be killed, then put the blood onto your doorpost. So it's basically like a leader doesn't really like force the people to follow, more like gives them a choice to, like give them free will.
Okay. Anything else?
I thought it was interesting in Moses' story, after he deals with the golden calf and all the sin and making atonement, it says that he went back up to the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights, and he neither ate bread nor drank water. That's chapter 34. So he sacrificed the comforts of eating and of drinking and therefore fasting, and that physical comfort of not having those things to serve the Lord, to come back to get the Ten Commandments again because he broke them. He broke the physical things, and so he gave a sacrifice of his physical comforts to serve the people of Israel as he was commanded to do.
I like that. Cool. Anything else? Feel free to flip over to Exodus for inspiration.
if you need to. One thing I think of is when they crossed the sea and the Egyptians got all wiped out and washed away. He was praising the Lord, right? And so the way that he worshiped God kind of set an example to the Israelites of, how to worship, which I think is cool and important. And we don't always see them following that. The Israelites did a lot of complaining.
I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
I'm hungry. I'm fine.
It reminds me of a car ride.
You can get buses early.
A long car ride.
It was better in Egypt. Can we get bed buses already?
But through all that, we see Moses being patient with them, right? He put up with a lot of whining and complaining, and he still did everything he could to help them. Not only help with their physical needs, being hungry and thirsty, but also with their spiritual needs, to, show them that, hey, God is going to provide for you, even though this situation isn't fun for you right now. And also by helping them, he was like the judge. He kind of like helped them work out other problems. And so he's kind of, he helps people learn how to live the way that God wanted them to. So he helps with their, yeah.
I'm going to break the rules a little and go into Numbers.
Oh, no.
I know you said just Exodus, but I'm going to give you a little preview for a couple weeks from now. In Numbers chapter 12, Miriam and Aaron, so that's Moses' brother and sister, come up to him, and they're grumpy because Moses is the sole leader, and they're saying, like, doesn't the Lord speak through us? We've been telling the people things as well. And Moses is like, he's very humble and like, yeah, I mean, God can speak through you as well. And it says, in fact, the man Moses was very meek, very humble. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't like, no, I'm the only one that can talk on God's behalf. And it says he was more humble than all the people who are on the face of the earth. But then God speaks and is like, no, Moses, don't be a pushover. I am speaking through you. You are speaking to the people. Like Moses was ready to kind of share some of the burden, share some of the responsibility with his brother and sister, because he was humble. He wasn't puffed up and arrogant and I'm the only one that can do it. He was willing to share that load. But then God said, no, I gave you this responsibility. And it says the Lord's anger was kindled against Aaron and Miriam because they were going against what he was saying.
They were wanting the power.
They were wanting the power. Moses was okay sharing the power that he had from God. But God said, no, I gave it to you for a reason. That's it. Spoiler alert.
Anything else? I think we got a lot of good ones.
Moses also interceded. So there were like 2 or 3 just in Exodus instances where the Lord was really upset at the Israelites, and Moses basically talked to him like, hey, can you calm down, please? You don't want to die. Or like, remember the promises you gave us. Not that God doesn't remember them. Like God could easily have, lessened his anger and not. But still, that act of faith of going to God and being like, we promised this and we're remaining faithful to this, like even though we messed up, we're sorry, can you help us, cleanse us, or whatever. And so, yeah, it still caused punishment, like we talked about a week or two ago, how like 3,000 or more people were killed because of the sin that they committed, but they weren't wiped out. They were still promised to get to the land that God promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's just that there's some loving punishment along the way as well, but not a complete wipeout and you no longer exist kind of thing.
Alright, now on to my mostest favorite part. Mostest application. So,
What was the blank before application?
our spiritual leaders can be examples of servant leadership. So, application. I have two questions. What are some areas of your life where you can lead by example? And what are some specific ways you can serve those around you? So if you want to start filling that out on the handout and share ideas, share your thoughts. If you think of something but don't want to share it out loud, that's totally fine. Does everyone have at least something written down? Cool. So, let's talk about what are some areas of your life where you can lead by example. So this could be, most of you are homeschooled, this could be around your siblings, this could be here in this group, it could be at school, it could be in other places in the church. What are some things you guys said for that? All of that question. All of those exactly. Oh, I did your homework for you. Yeah. Cool. So
in this class, you can lead by example by doing your homework, doing memorization, getting your Bible notebook. Lucy is leading by example right now on the star chart. That's just a way of keeping track of who's leading by example.
It's a very concrete way.
So, what are some specific ways you can serve those around you? And kind of lead by example through the way you serve others. I think mine is talking to people more and building relationships, because I'm kind of quiet and I have a hard time talking to people, but I can serve people by just checking in on them. So that is one of mine. What does some of you guys say?
Just by listening.
Listening? Yeah, definitely. Would you like to say something, Lucy?
Yeah, I know the same question.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
I was
are.
writing stuff down and didn't catch all of what you said. Okay. Like doing things without being asked.
Yeah. Definitely.
Doing things when you're asked.
Yeah.
Obey your parents.
Remembering it the first time it said, yeah. For me, mine was a little more internal of checking my attitude. Because I deal with a lot of people in my weeks. Because not only do I work with you guys, but I also teach 30 to 40 students a week and have all their parents and their siblings. So close to 100 people a week that I talk to and deal with. And like Anna, I'm more of an introvert and that really exhausts me. And so I have to often check my heart and my attitude. Because on the outside I could be behaving correctly, but the inside may not be lining up with that. And that is just as much of a sin as, not serving people correctly. If I hate somebody in my heart, I've murdered them. Right? Jesus says that kind of comparison. So lately for me, it's been checking internally on how I'm managing my own mind when I'm interacting with all these people.
I'd like to hear from one more person. Miss Ma'am.
Yeah, so to serve those around me, I mean, school, right? I mean, sharing the gospel more and starting more conversations. Classic answer.
So how can you serve people at school?
Well, by sharing the gospel one, isn't that serving?
Yeah.
Right, because it's it's bringing them, giving them a chance. Yes, giving them a chance at knowing God, and yeah.
Cool. I like it.
And how you respond to them when they agree or disagree or have questions, how you respond is an example as well.
Yeah, by still showing love either way. Instead of hate.
Awesome. So,
And my grandma.
yeah.
Like, I kind of sneakily speak little, like, gospel things in my homework thing during English. Like, because it's like a hero thingy, like the story, and I put Jesus, and I did his entire life as my project. I'm like, by the way, there's this amazing dude called, I like to do that sometimes, it's very fun.
I like it. Yeah. Awesome. So, I have two takeaways because I love you guys so much. We're all called to be leaders, no matter who you are, how old or how young you are. And serving others is the core of Christ. So, yeah, can I have a volunteer to pray? I'll try this again.
Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you that we could all come to church today and get here and listen to Miss Honor teach us about leadership and all that good stuff. I think this is really a lesson. Thank you that Mr. Daniel got here safely from Wascova, and I pray that his parents get better because I know stuff is happening right now, and I pray that our hearts and our minds are open for the message today in the service. And yeah, in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.